Hello and welcome to day 11 of the 14-day photography challenge. Now yesterday we were talking about taking pictures in low light and how to hold your camera still to avoid blur. And today we're going to be talking about how to deliberately add motion or blur into your images. So if you want to create movement in your image, you can use a technique called long exposure. So long exposure is when the camera takes a long time to take the picture. So anything that's moving in your image will be blurred. Now to explain how this works, I'm going to go into a little bit about shutter speed and aperture. So the aperture is a hole or opening that controls how much light is being let into the camera. So the size of the opening is given a number. A small opening is a large number such as 16 or 22. And a large opening is a small number such as 2.8. A small opening is known as a narrow aperture and a big opening is known as a wide aperture. So to show you how the aperture works, here's a little video that I took earlier of one of my lenses. So you can see here that the hole is quite small. I'm using a narrow aperture here, so a very high number. And I'm just going to move down to a wide aperture or a low number. Now the shutter is something that opens and closes, allowing light into the camera for a certain amount of time. Think of the shutter like a pair of curtains, and the shutter speed is how quickly you open and close those pair of curtains. So to create a long exposure, we want to reduce the amount of light that's coming in with our aperture, while increasing the amount of time that we let light in using the shutter speed. So to create a long exposure, we need a slow shutter speed to keep those curtains open longer and let more light into the camera. How slow your shutter speed is depends on what you're taking a picture of, whether you want movement or whether you just want to take a picture of the night sky, for example. If you're taking a picture of a subject during the day and you want a little bit of movement in there, you won't have to have as slow shutter speed as at night because you've got plenty of light to work with and you're just looking for a little bit of motion in your image. So if you're taking a long exposure on your phone or tablet, you don't have as much control as you do on a camera. However, if you're using the Lightroom app, you are able to control the shutter speed in the app.
Okay, so here we are in the Lightroom app. If we go down to the little picture of the camera down here. Now, so this is set to auto just now down here, but we want to change this to professional. And if we press seconds, now you can see here it's set to auto and that looks pretty good to me. But if you move this slider across, and you see the shutter speed changing at the top. So if we put that down to say 20, and we'll take a picture there. Now actually that's not too bad, we've managed to hold that fairly still and that's quite an even exposure. We'll go down to half a second and see what that does. And then we have a nice blurry image of the rainbow. Now let's try moving, keeping the camera relatively still here, and I'll try moving my hand across the image. 3, 2, 1. And there we have my hand moving across the frame. So I'll just show you a neat little trick that you can do on your iPhone as well. Make sure that you have the live function activated here. Take your photo. And then if you go into the photo and scroll up, it'll bring up some more options here. So you have loop, bounce and long exposure. Now this is a little bit tricky to get right. It takes a little bit of practice. You will get a little bit more control using the Lightroom app.
If you don't want to use the app, you can still get creative with movement in your images. Try using low light and have something moving fast in front of your camera. So today's challenge is movement. So for this challenge, I want you to try using a bit of deliberate blur in your image. Enjoy and I'll see you tomorrow.